Hello everyone, my name is Keely. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back if you've been here before. Today we're going to talk about all the books that I read in the month of February. So as usual, we're going to start with stats, which you can skip over if you want. I use the spreadsheet from Deja's Book World and I really love it. So let's get started. I read 17 books, which is the same amount I read in January, so that was really great that I was able to keep that momentum going. So let's hope that keeps going throughout the year. As far as pages go, I read 5,839 pages. Unfortunately, my average rating for February was down from the previous month and it was a 3.53, which isn't horrible, but it's definitely not where I want it to be. Now, to no one's surprise, my most read genre in February was romance. I managed to read 5 romances in February, which is great. I kind of wish I read a little bit more, but I really enjoyed the ones that I did get to. As far as format goes, I listened to 4 audiobooks, I read 5 ebooks, and I read 8 physical books. Now, if you remember, I only listened to audiobooks if it is a reread for me, so that means I also had 4 rereads. As far as audience, I read 7 adult books and 10 YA books. As far as ratings go, I had 1 1-star, 4 2-stars, 1 3-star, 7 4-stars, and 4 5-stars. And the last stat is author status. I read 1 debut book, 5 books that were new to me authors, and 11 books that were repeat authors. So that's it for stats. So as always, we're going to talk about these books in the order I read them in. And the first book I actually read for a vlog where it was Romance with a Side of Food, episode 1. I had such a great time with this vlog because foodie romance is like my favorite subgenre. And the first book I completed in February for that vlog was The Donut Trap by Julie Tu. Now this one was a lot of fun, not to mention this cover is really cute. So in this book, we follow a girl named Jasmine, and Jasmine has recently graduated from college and she is feeling kind of directionless and she has no idea what she wants to do with her life. So she still lives at home with her parents and works in their donut shop. She is constantly working and she is so tired of it, and she's also very tired of her parents' scrutiny because they think that she is lazy and just not successful in life. In walks one day her high school crush, Alex Lai, and Alex Lai is the perfect boy for her according to her parents. He's successful and he's Chinese, which is everything they want for Jasmine. So Jasmine goes out on a date with Alex and they have this dinner and she thinks he's perfect, but after the dinner something happens and she realizes Alex might not be as perfect as she thought he was. So I really enjoyed this book because not only is it a romance book and there's a donut shop, but it also focuses on what it's like to be the child of an immigrant family and what it's like to be Asian American in America and how difficult that is and the different journeys that she goes through because of that. It also shows you how hard it is for her because her parents have these high expectations for her and she just feels like they are unattainable and she is kind of worthless in her parents' eyes because she is not able to do anything and she's still living at home. So I will say I related to Jasmine a lot because right now I am also feeling directionless and like I have no idea what I want to do, and I'm living in my parents' house. Fortunately for me, my parents are a lot more supportive than Jasmine's were in this book, but I will say the donut shop scenes were really great, and there was also some experimentation in here with new flavors of donuts, and I really loved all of those scenes. I also really liked Alex as a character. However, where this fell a little flat with me was the relationship between Jasmine and Alex. I didn't feel it completely 100%. I wasn't fully obsessed with it, so I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was kind of a bucket list book for me. I am trying to read all of the young adult books that I really wanted to read in high school and never got to. So the first book I read for that was Angel Fall by Susan E. This is book 1 in the Penryn and the End of Days trilogy, and in this book we follow a girl named Penryn, and her sister is in a wheelchair and her mother is a paranoid schizophrenic, so Penryn has a lot of responsibility trying to take care of her family in this apocalyptic world where angels have taken over. So one day they are trying to leave their home to find a safer place to live, and they stumble upon a group of angels that are fighting, and Penryn's sister actually ends up getting kidnapped by one of these angels. So the entire book, Penryn has to team up with an angel called Roth, and they have to try to save Penryn's sister. So I will say this book is not groundbreaking, it's not very great, but I had a great time reading it and it was a lot of fun. I really like Penryn as a character. She has taken a lot of self-defense classes, so she uses that to navigate this apocalyptic world. I also really like Roth as a character and seeing the different angel abilities, and I always thought I was never like an angel person like in stories, but this book really showed me I could like angels because I really did like Roth. Now, I will say this book had a lot of problematic language that was very dated and kind of offensive. So like I said, Penryn's mother is a paranoid schizophrenic, and so the language that's used associated with her is really offensive and just very stereotypical, and even Penryn says that about her mom a lot. She calls her different names and things like that just don't sit comfortable with me. There's also a character in here that has albinism, and the way this character was treated and described I found very offensive, and so I didn't like that. But this book is pretty old. I can't remember exactly when it came out. I think 2011, so there is some dated terms, so just know that going into it. But I had a great time reading it, but it wasn't anything that's gonna be my favorite forever, so I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I also read for the vlog, Romance with a Side of Food, and that is Love from Scratch by Caitlin Hill. So in this book we follow Reese, and Reese has just graduated high school and she is going into college in the fall, and this summer she has landed a dream internship at this company that's kind of like a YouTube channel with baking. So it's a lot like Try Guys, where they have a group of guys and they each have their own different segment, and so this company has a bunch of different cooking shows and different YouTube celebrities, and Reese is an intern in the marketing department. There's also another intern named Benny, and he is the culinary intern. At the end of the summer, there is this big job that the interns are kind of competing for because only one of them gets it. One day there is a video being filmed, and the people that are supposed to be in the video are not able to be in it, so they tell the interns, guess what, y'all are going to be in this video, it's going to be called Amateur Hour, and y'all are going to have no idea what's going on. So this video they make ends up going viral because of the chemistry between Reese and Benny, and everyone wants to see more of them, so they create an entire segment called Amateur Hour. And when people realize that there is a job at the end of the summer, they kind of create this competition between Reese and Benny. I loved this book so much. It is one of my favorite books of the year and one of my favorite romances. This is kind of an older young adult romance, so there's no steam, it is like all clean, and I just really love these characters so much. The banter in here is some of the best banter I have ever read, and they each have different nicknames for each other, which is so funny every single time. This book also covers what it is to be a woman in the workplace, because Reese faces a lot of struggles because of that, whereas Benny doesn't, and so Benny is really seeing what that is like and how Reese is being treated very differently than he is, so that is also a topic in here. I just had a great time with it. We get to see so many different scenes and settings in this book, and they're all so great. This is set in Seattle, and I just really love Seattle. And the cooking in here, so they do baking, they cook breakfast and dinner and lunch and just so many different meals, and it is all so good. I give this one 5 out of 5 stars, and I just want everyone to read it. The next book I read was a reread for me, and that is 4 by Veronica Roth. Now this is a collection of short stories in the Divergent series, all about 4, and this is from his point of view. I love this series so much, and I really like this collection as well. Getting to see everything that we know from 4's point of view and getting a little more insight into his background and his own story was really fascinating, and I just really love 4 as a character, and so getting to know all the ins and outs and the dark secrets and what has happened to him was just really great, and also seeing him meet Tris and that relationship form, I just really loved it, and I gave it 5 stars. The next book I read was also in my Romance with a Side of Food vlog, and that is Don't Fall in Love by Jackie Lau. So in this book we follow Lindsay, and Lindsay owns another donut shop. She kind of makes these really great donuts that have kind of gone viral, and one day in walks famous actor Ryan Kwok. Now Ryan, as soon as he walks in the door, runs into Lindsay and dumps a tray of her famous donuts all over the floor, and so she starts yelling at him, and she has no idea he is this famous actor. Now, in a few months, Ryan is actually going to go on a celebrity baking show, but he has no idea how to bake, so he ends up actually asking Lindsay for lessons, and she gives him private baking lessons, and those scenes were just so great. So Lindsay and Ryan have also both lost one of their parents, so they are both on a different grief journey, because Lindsay lost her father years ago and Ryan recently lost his mother, so they are both grieving but in very different ways. So I really liked how this book showed the different journeys of grief and how it can look on different people. This book is actually pretty steamy and there are a lot of steamy scenes, and I was okay with them, but I also felt like a lot of them were really rushed and just happened randomly, so they definitely weren't my favorite. I did really love Lindsay and Ryan and the different topics this book covered, because not only did it cover grief, there was also a discussion of postpartum depression and what it's like to be an Asian actor in Hollywood and how much pressure Ryan faced because he has this weight on his shoulders of how nobody thinks that Asians should be in a rom-com, and he recently starred in a rom-com that's actually getting really bad reviews, so he's kind of having to struggle with that as well. Overall, the baking lessons were so great. I really loved both characters, but something was just a little miss for me in the spicy scenes, and so I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was The Island by Adrian McKinnon, and this book is actually set in Australia, and we follow this family that are visiting Australia, and they have 2 very annoying kids who really want to go see Australian animals. So the dad's like, okay, I'm on a break from my conference that I'm supposed to speak at, and these guys overhear them talking about this, so they're like, we're gonna take you to our private island. If you pay us a lot of money, you can go on this island, see the animals, and then leave, and nobody will know that you were there. So they go on this island, something occurs on the island, and they are not allowed to leave, and basically it is a fight for their lives. I loved this book so much. It was a 5-star prediction for me, and I just had such a great time reading it. It is so fast-paced, and I also really loved the character development throughout the story. The main woman, Heather, I think she's a really great character, and I really love following her perspective and seeing her try to survive and also save her loved ones. I thought this was a really great story, and if you are a fan of No Exit, I would recommend this because it's like No Exit, but in a hot setting, which is somehow worse. But I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. Next, I picked up Loath to Love You by Ali Hazelwood, and this is a bind-up of her 3 short story collections, which is Under One Roof, Stuck With You, and Below Zero. Once again, all of these stories are STEMinist novellas, so we follow 3 different girls. They're all best friends, and so we follow their love stories. I love Ali Hazelwood so much, and a lot of people say that she has kind of this formula that she constantly follows, and so things can feel repetitive. For me, it works every time. It never misses, and I love it so much. I will say the best story in here for me was Stuck With You. They're stuck in an elevator together, and I just love that forced proximity. The last story, Below Zero, I really enjoyed, but Hannah is probably my least favorite Ali Hazelwood character that I ever read from before. But this was one of those stories where I was like, I'm just gonna read the first story and then pick up other books in between. No, I could not put it down. I needed more Ali Hazelwood in my life. Overall, this averaged out to 4 stars for me. Next, I picked up Girl of Nightmares by Kendare Blake. This is book 2 in the Anna Dressed in Blood duology. So in the first book, we follow this boy named Cass, and Cass is a ghost hunter, and he learned this from his dad. So him and his mom travel all over the country to hunt ghosts. One day, he gets a letter in the mail that is written in blood, and all it says is Anna. So he moves to this small town in Canada and has to take down this ghost Anna that has killed dozens of people. So this is the sequel, and it follows the ending of the first book, which I don't want to tell you about. But this book was such a letdown compared to the first book. I really enjoyed the first one, but this one dove more into secret societies and different legends, and that's just not my thing. I really didn't enjoy that. However, we do visit London in this, which was the saving grace for me, but overall I give this one 2 stars. I just really didn't enjoy it. The next book I read was a reread for me, and that is The Fifth Wave by Yancey. This is an apocalypse story, and we follow a high schooler named Cassie. And Cassie is trying to navigate a world where aliens have taken over and killed most of the population of Earth. And that's basically all you need to know. It's kind of a survival story, and I really loved this book the first time I read it. However, I still loved it, but I did not enjoy it as much as the first time I read it years ago. But I do really like Cassie as a character, and the beginning of the story is so fascinating, how Rick tells us the background of the apocalypse, because there are different waves and the way they take over and kill people, and we are on the 5th wave. So he explains the 4 previous waves very well, and we get to know Cassie's background and why she's alone and how she got to the place that she is. There are other parts in this book where we focus on a different character called Zombie, and he is kind of training in the military, and those parts I just didn't really enjoy as much as Cassie's parts. So overall, I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars, still a great rating, but the first time I read it, I gave it 5 stars, but now it's just 4. The next book I read was Funny You Should Ask by Alyssa Sussman. This is a romance book that is told in 2 different timelines, and in the first timeline, which was 10 years ago, we follow a reporter named Connie Horowitz, and she interviews celebrities. One day, she interviews this famous celebrity named Gabe Parker, who is about to become the next James Bond, and a lot of people don't agree with that because he is American, and people don't think James Bond should be played by an American guy, but Gabe Parker is super attractive, everyone loves him, and Connie has had a crush on him for so long, so she interviews him, and it turns into this weekend hangout, and they go on this weekend adventure, and she writes about it, and she goes viral and gets a really good career out of it. 10 years later, they only had that weekend and they haven't really talked or seen each other since, but she is being called to interview him again on like the 10-year anniversary of it, and Gabe has actually kind of had a falling out because he has been to rehab several times, so this new interview is kind of trying to shine up his image and make him seem like he is an okay guy and kind of save his career. So something about this book just really, really worked for me. I really liked the 2 characters, but I also really liked how this book didn't feel like a romance completely. There was kind of this mystery aspect because we don't know exactly what happened with them 10 years previously on that weekend and why they haven't talked since then, and so as the story goes on, we are figuring it out. In between each chapter, there are also different journal posts or like reviews, just different things on the internet that really help the story flow along, and you kind of see how people respond to Gabe and Connie and her different writing as well. We get to see that in her different blogs that she has, and I really, really enjoyed that. I really like these 2 characters, and I was rooting for them the whole time. I had such a fun time reading this, and I can't wait to read more from this author, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I picked up was The Red Scrolls of Magic by Cassandra, Clare, and Wesley Chu, and this is book 1 in the Eldest Curses series. So this series is actually Alec and Magnus's story, and I love them so much, so I was very excited to get to this one. In this first book, they are in Paris on an adventure and kind of a vacation away from the war that has just happened. This takes place within the Mortal Instruments series, so it is kind of set in that timeline if you're familiar with it. So they're in Paris, and one day someone comes up to Magnus that they know and says, "Magnus, there are rumors going around that you started this cult, and people are not happy about it." So they kind of have to figure out what this cult is, what happened, because Magnus does not remember any of it. I love these 2 characters so much. They are one of my favorite couples of all time, not just within the Shadowhunter series, but of all time. I love them so much, and they just filled my heart with so much joy. This is not the best written Shadowhunter book or series for that matter, but I still just had a great time with these 2 characters and see them fall in love, especially Alec, who is just now finding out who he is. I just love him so much, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book was a reread for me, and that is The Infinite Sea by Yancey. This is book 2 in the 5th Wave trilogy. So when I first read this book, I gave it 4 stars, and my enjoyment went down so much. I was considering DNFing my reread of the series, but I was like, I'm just gonna go ahead and finish because I want to know if my enjoyment is really tanking that much. So in this book, everyone is annoying. Like, they're so annoying, and I feel like not a whole lot happens. Also, I found it quite annoying how many times this title is in the story. I usually love when I can see the title within a story, but if it's told like 10 plus times, it's kind of annoying. But yes, everyone was so annoying in this book, and I hated Cassie's brother so much, so I ended up giving this one 2 stars. The next book I read was World After by Susan E. This is book 2 in the Penryn and the End of Days trilogy. So this is the continuation of book 1, so I can't really tell you what happened or where it goes, but I will say that Rafi wasn't in this one as much, and so I really didn't enjoy it because I missed Rafi as a character, and I really wanted to see more of him, and because we didn't have him, I gave this one 2 out of 5 stars because it was boring without Rafi. The next book I picked up was The Longest Walk by Stephen King, and this is kind of a dystopian horror, and in this world, every year there is this competition called The Longest Walk. Now, people from all over America apply to be in this competition, and they go through some testing in order to be picked. 100 boys are picked from this competition, and in this book in particular, we follow 16-year-old Ray Garrity, who has been picked for this competition. Basically, the gist of this is you have to keep walking. If you stop or go below 4 miles an hour, you get 3 warnings and they will kill you. So the last person standing gets the prize, which is anything they want for the rest of their life. So this book is all about the walk and how these boys are slowly losing their mind because they are walking hundreds and hundreds of miles, and they have nothing. They literally have to go to the bathroom as they are walking, and it is just wild and gruesome, and I loved it so much. This is my favorite Stephen King book I have read so far. I cannot believe it hasn't been made into a movie. I just loved this book so much. I gave it 5 stars, and I highly recommend this if you are interested in reading Stephen King. The next book I read was End of Days by Susan E. This is the 3rd and final book in the Penryn and the End of Days trilogy. So I read this entire trilogy in February, and by the time I got to this 3rd book, I was so ready for it to be done. Initially, when the 3rd book started, I was like, oh, this is actually better than the 2nd one. There was also this random, really mature scene kind of thrown into the beginning, which had a very different tone from the first 2 books. So I was thinking initially, okay, this 3rd book is going to have a more mature scene or a more mature tone throughout the whole book. But no, it was just that one scene, and the rest of the book was the same as the first 2, so it felt kind of out of place and odd that that scene was thrown in there. I really enjoyed it, but it was just kind of out of place. But like I said, over time, I was ready for this to be done, so I ended up giving this one 2 out of 5 stars just because I was done with it, I was over it, and I was kind of bored. But I still really do like Penryn and Rothi, and I had fun overall, but, you know, just not for me completely. The next book I read was another reread for me, and that is The Last Star by Rick Yancey. This is the 3rd and final book in the 5th Wave trilogy, so once again, I read this entire trilogy in February, and unfortunately, I hated this. So the explanation for the aliens and everything that was going on, I really hated it, and I just did not think it was a good way to explain it all. There was also something in here that happened to a particular character that I just didn't understand why that was in there. I hated this ending overall, and I ended up giving it 1 star, which once again lowered my rating from the first time I read it, but I think the first time I read it, it was still a 2 star, so it didn't lower it that much, but this was definitely my least favorite read of the month, which was sad because it was a reread. The last book I read in the month of February was The Chain by Adrian McKinnon. And in this book, there is this thing called The Chain, this organization, and what happens is a child gets kidnapped, and in order to get your child back, you have to kidnap another child and go through this whole set of rules, and basically this chain keeps on going forever and ever. So in this book, we follow a mother, and her daughter has just been kidnapped, so we follow her as she is having to go through everything and figure out how to kidnap another child. So that is actually like the first half of the book. The second half is like trying to take down the chain, and so the first half and the second half have a completely different tone, but overall I really enjoyed both of them. It is just kind of shocking, that tone shift, if you don't know that it's coming, but I really liked both stories. However, they did feel very different. They felt like 2 different books almost, but this was wild and crazy, and once again, very fast-paced. Adrian McKinnon just knows how to write a fast-paced thriller. I really liked the mom in here and the daughter as well, and the chain, the way it's set up, is really fascinating, and the history of it in the background. Overall, I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. So those are all the books that I read in the month of February. Let me know what you read and what your favorite book was. If you have made it this far in the video, go ahead and leave the orange heart emoji. But that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. As always, all my social media links will be down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye!